Okay, hello, hello. We are live, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be the Book Troop live show for The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon.
Oh,
And oh, perfect, you have it. I was like, you have the nice hardcover finished copy.
yes,
Love
it's
it.
lovely as well. It feels amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So thank you to everybody who's already joining us. This is my lovely friend Gavin over from How to Train Your Gavin. His channel will be linked down below if you're unfamiliar for whatever reason. And yeah, why don't you go ahead, maybe like introduce yourself, kind of talk about your channel, like what you typically read, that
Yes,
kind of thing.
all of this stuff, all of the good stuff. I'm Gavin, and as Gabby said from How to Train Your Gavin, I literally cannot pigeonhole myself as like a reader anymore because I used to be all about the middle grade, and I kind of still am. I do still like read middle grade, but recently, I'd say for the past, well, actually, the whole of this year, I've been reading more like adult stuff. I've been really enjoying horror and thriller, and discovering that for the first time. I'm
Yeah.
reading like fantasy and even like historical, like I like historical. Oh, I've been loving romance, but I go through phases where I'll be obsessed with romance one minute, and then I'll go into horror the next. And I'm
Hmm.
just when people ask me to describe my channel, I'm like, I can't,
Yeah.
I can't describe it. I'm sorry, but yeah, I read a bit of everything. So hopefully there's a little bit of something for everyone somewhere.
Hmm. No, for sure. And if you're watching this right now and you're not subscribed to Gavin, seriously, go and check out his channel. Like, seriously, Gavin is one of the most creative booktubers like on the internet right now.
Uh,
Like every
uh,
video you do, I'm like blown away by your creativity. Like it's amazing.
well, none
Genuinely.
of my vlogs touch Gabby's recent one. I don't know if anybody's seen it,
Oh
but
my
it's
god.
on Gabby's Patreon, and it's the vlog that Gabby did for this book with her mum. It was
Oh,
amazing. I loved it. I
thank
absolutely loved it. It
you.
was such a fantastic vlog. And make sure you tell your mum as well that she was incredible in it. I loved it. I need more.
I will do. She will love that. She was so excited that she was like, I got to read the book that you're gonna read with Gavin and I get to like watch the live show with Gavin. I was like, yes. Like my mom loves you so much. So
I love her, so it's all good.
gosh, hello. Let me pop up. Mikay's here. What's up, Mikay? So many people in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us. I would love to know. Ooh, Lexi's here.
Hi, Lexi.
Hello. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so I would love to know, if you're joining us in the chat, if you have read the book, maybe you can just put, a red heart if you have read the book, and then maybe you can do like, I don't know, like a skull emoji if you haven't, just so I can get some representation in the comments and see who's all here because they've read it. Um, so yeah, that's exciting. So maybe while they're doing that, would you want to like pitch this book to anybody who hasn't read it, just like a general premise, like
Yeah.
non-spoilery?
Oh gosh, right, Gabby. I cannot tell you. Like, I went into this expecting something totally different, right? And I will summarize it, but the reason
Yeah,
why it's hard to summarize is because it takes you to places you've never gone before. It's like
yeah,
so. I wasn't expecting the book I got going into it, but like
yeah.
essentially the premise is we're following two different time periods. One in the 70s, one in the kind of like present day slash 2019. And we are following I'm going to be so bad at names now because of something that happens at the end. I'm like, who was
Yeah.
who again? So I think it was Vi, Vi and Eric. I think Vi and Eric were the kids. So in the 70s, we're following Vi and Eric, and their gran presents them a temporary sister called Iris,
Mhm.
that they kind of have to like get to know and get to know, and try and get her out of her shell because she's like very quiet. And then in the present day, we are following them growing up. And one of the sisters is looking for the other one, because there are reports that there are like monsters or a monster that is kidnapping children.
Mhm.
And but like that is just so surface level. There's just so much more to it.
Mhm.
I yeah, that's kind of like I guess how I would describe it if I try to.
Yeah. No, that's great. I know this is a really hard book to summarize after you know what happens at the end, because then it kind of like
Hmm.
messes up everything you thought you knew about it.
Yeah.
But nice.
Literally, but I
Okay.
tried. I tried. I
Yeah.
tried to summarize it.
Well, that was great. Okay, well, perfect. So it seems like we have quite a mix of people that have read it and then some people that have not read it yet. So we will keep this beginning spoiler free. So if you are here because you haven't read it, we won't be jumping into spoilers and we will warn you before we do. So On that note, I guess I would love to know what everyone rated it. So if you have read the book, please put in the chat like your star rating out of 5, how you felt about it. And while we're doing that, do you want to share your rating? Because I know if you watch my vlog, then you probably know my rating, but I have no idea how you felt about it. So
Well, I went through a roller coaster of emotions, to be
yeah,
honest. So I wasn't really 100% sure what I was going to give it. I think I'm going to settle at a 4 star, which
okay,
is for me like very good because, yeah, it's like, again, typically not the thing I really read.
yeah,
Um, but I think I was going to go for like a 3.5 until the twist. And
mhm,
then after that, I was like, okay, you
yeah,
have my attention. You have my attention. So yeah,
yeah.
4 stars, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I would agree that the beginning was slow for me for a while and it took me a bit to get into, but then yeah, when that twist hit, like it definitely bumped up my rating for
Yeah,
sure.
it was, I mean, well, obviously, I'll not say what the twist is, but, like, it was just such a good one to really make you reconsider how to read the book, I guess,
Mhm.
because there's just this author is so good at distracting you and
Yeah,
making you think a certain way, and I was just like, "Well, how dare you? How dare you?"
exactly. Oh my gosh, my mom is in the chat. I think she gave it 4 stars too. Cute. Well, oh my gosh, there's so many people that have given it
It
5
wasn't
stars.
is Ki I'm sure Kim gave it, what, like, 4.5 in the vlog. Did Kim, like, give it a little bit less then? Now, like, now
Yeah,
that she's had more time to think about it?
no, I think she's somewhere around 4 okay, she commented, yeah, 4.5.
Oh my god, yeah.
She's
I
around
say I
there.
was paying attention. I was paying attention. But I know, like, after talking about a book, I mean, who knows? I might bump mine up. I might bump it lower. I don't know. But like, I love talking about books like this where I can really kind of reevaluate my own rating because, yeah,
Yeah.
who knows? It might change by the end of the live show.
She's like, there was a twist.
We'll say this is the thing. Like, we'll discuss it.
Yeah. Yes, it's on page 40. Well,
Though, to be fair, there were a couple of twists, I feel, but there was one twist that really stood out to me.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Interesting.
We are very chaotic, to be fair. We are like a very energetic. Like we always have so much energy. I think, and
Mhm.
putting us together, we're kind of like, I don't know.
Honestly, it should have happened sooner. Like, I don't know what took this so long to happen. Like,
Uh, like all good love stories, it takes
yeah,
time. It takes time.
exactly. Okay, well, cool. It seems like we do have a pretty, wide mix of ratings, but it does seem like most of it is on the higher end. And from what I've noticed, just on like my Discord and everything, it does seem like this book was more like loved than a couple of the other butcher picks that I've had this year. So that's exciting.
Nine lives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Nine Lives was a big miss, but so I guess the first question before we jump into spoilers that I had is, did you have a preference on like which point of view you liked reading more from? Like, did you like the kids like chapters better than like Lizzie's chapters, or did you have a preference on which ones?
Hmm. It's weird because I feel like looking back on it now, knowing what I know at the end,
Mhm.
I feel like maybe the kids chapters a little bit
Yeah.
because it felt a little, and at least in the direction it went in, felt a little bit. And I know you said this as well, but like a little bit Stranger Things, but also like American Horror Story, like Asylum a little bit. Like they will have there was just something really sinister going on, and I wanted to figure it out. I didn't quite figure it out,
Mhm.
but I just knew there was just something not quite right. And I felt like the Lizzie, which was still a really good narrator to follow, that felt more like I was bamboozled more with that one, and it made me
Yeah.
feel a bit stupid. So, so I kind of like, I still love it. I still thought it was like good and stuff, but I feel like it was a little bit more. It pulled the wool over your eyes a little bit more than the younger chapters, I think.
Mhm. No, I agree. I really liked the oh my gosh, I just realized I never even said my rating. um Whoops. I ended up giving it like a 4.5. I think is my final rating. It was more of a 4 for me until that twist at the end, and then I was like, oh shit, like okay, I'm
Mm,
on board. But there was one thing about the end that wasn't super satisfying for me, so that's
mm,
why I ended up giving it a 4.5 instead of like a full
mm.
5 stars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and like you said, I was really invested in the kids chapters just because of like trying to figure out what was going on with Iris. Like I was just really
Mm.
invested in like Iris's story. But then I also really did like Lizzie's parts with like the podcast elements. Like I almost
Oh
wish that
yeah.
was included a little bit more in a way.
Yeah.
But I really love the idea of like a creepy ass like Monsters Among Us kind of podcast. Like I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I feel like, it was a great parallel to them as kids because when they were, like, making the book as well, the kind of Book of Monsters as well,
Yeah.
it felt very circular, and I like the fact that it didn't feel like 2 or at least, like, because 'cause I'd say, like, for 3 characters, there's, Iris, Vi, and Eric. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be terrible. It felt like them continuing rather than, like, totally different characters as,
Mhm.
like, adults. I mean, even though so much happens and so much changes, I could believe the kind of progression of them. I can believe that it's still them narrating as adults.
Yeah.
Um, so I totally, yeah, it's hard to pick a really good POV actually. And I know a lot of people are
Mhm.
saying in the chat as well, like the Lizzie chapters were very fast paced. I totally agree. There's more unsatisfying ends with the adult part than the kids part, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah, there's too many loose ends with that one, I think.
This comment is my favorite. Elite academia.
So,
Love it.
uh,
Oh my
I'm
god.
just lucky, I guess. Just lucky, I guess.
Mhm.
Did I pronounce it Book of Monsters or Book of Monsters? I can't remember.
That is the
Because
question.
Yeah, because I usually say monsters, where make it like a U, and that's just like my accent. But then I
Yeah.
try not to do my accent, and I say monsters, Book of Monsters.
I mean, either way sounds really cool, so I love it. Hi, Nakia. Um, well, cool. So let's see. What did y'all think of the chapters that were excerpts? That's another question that I was going
Mm,
to ask was, did you think it added anything to the book having those kind of like, because if you haven't read it, there's these chapters like in between the point of view chapters that are kind of like, like the Book of Monsters, or like they look kind of like excerpts from a book or like the kids' book. So did
yeah.
you like those, or did you feel like they were necessary in the book?
I like I like the Book of Monsters segments because that's something that I would do as a child, and I did. I used to make my own little like spell books. I used to make my own little kind of creature encyclopedias and things, just things from my own imagination that I totally believed were true.
Mm-hmm.
So I could totally believe it, and even though like it was very I shouldn't judge these kids. I shouldn't because what they wrote was a whole load of waffle. Because they barely wrote much, but and it was like very surface level stuff. I'm trying to find one now.
Mm-hmm.
I like how to make a monster and stuff. It's like that part was really good. Actually, I highlighted that one. I like the how to make a monster because there's a lot to do with like the full moon, using radiation, a bite, a sting, a kiss, and when you
Mm-hmm.
know like things that happen later on as well, it felt like some of it was very relevant.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of the other parts of the Book of Monsters, I was trying to find an example, but I mustn't. I highlight, but I don't tab, so I can
Yeah.
never find anything ever again. Oh, hang on, there's the one. Yeah, it was just kind of like um, yeah, there are two types of monsters, ones you know and ones you don't. And it's kind of
Mhm.
like very childish, not in a bad way, but it just, I don't know what I'm saying anymore, actually. It's like, as I'm explaining it, I kind of understand more why it's like that. And I'm talking myself out of what I thought before. But yeah, you know what? Ignore me. It actually is relevant. It's relevant. But
Mhm.
there was the other stuff as well. What was it? The journalist was it the journalist the helping hand of God, the true story of the hillside inn,
Yeah.
Julia, writing that stuff. I liked that a lot as well because I feel
Mhm.
like that made it feel even more real too. So out of those two, the Book of Monsters and the true story of the hillside inn, I think I preferred this true story of the hillside inn because I could you that again that is like real, and then
Mhm.
the kids one was like something I would do as a kid just to make things
Yeah.
up, you know.
I know, I agree. I totally agree with this comment too, how like the reporter
Mm,
like the per book really like added suspense for it. And I feel like you actually learned a lot through or like there was a lot of insight on like Grant's character, especially through her, like the true story of like learning about it. So it also like just
yeah.
added some intrigue of like for the mystery, like what's gonna happen, because you could see that her chapters were like in 1980, and you know that those chapters with the kids were like in the late 70s. So you're kind of like, okay, this is
Mm,
like what follows that. So you're kind of like, okay, what happened? And like, I don't know, it added
yeah,
some like suspense and mystery for me. So I
yeah,
really liked those chapters. Yeah.
yeah. The intrigue was very high on that because yeah, you're like trying to guess what's like happened because it is very slow going, so it takes a while for you to get that. And I think maybe some people in the comments said that they kind of like guessed some of the twists and stuff. And I
Hmm.
feel like I probably guessed like one thing, but yeah, I agree. I totally agree. They definitely made us stay on topic and made us stay focused on what actually happened in Hillside Inn because it can be hard flipping between two different time periods and it's very easy to forget that something bad happened at Hillside Inn because we're following Lizzie in the future, you know, in like, as an adult. So like,
Hmm.
yeah, it keeps us on track. I think it
Yeah,
was really well done.
I would agree. I also agree with this. I wanted on page podcast.
Yeah,
That would
yeah.
be cool. That's an interesting point too. I wish there were more in or depth in the characters. It was more atmosphere focused. I can definitely see that.
I wish, and again, we can talk about it later when we're doing spoilers. I wish there was definitely something about the older character, um, just to give you some intrigue of what I'm thinking about it.
Hmm.
Wish something was explained there because
Yeah.
there's just a glaring hole in like kind of logic, kind of logic to it. So I'm waiting for that to. I was waiting for that to drop, and it just didn't drop. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. There was that's what I mean. There was definitely some things about the ending that I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like I could have used more there.
Explain. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, explain.
Nikkei had a good question. I was wondering, have you read anything else by Jennifer McMahon? I couldn't remember. No, nothing else.
First time, and
Um,
I enjoy. I would read more. I would read more.
yeah. Well, good. Yeah, I was gonna say, like The Winter People is still like my favorite Jennifer McMahon that I've read, and I would say I don't know, the vibes are not necessarily the same, but like they're the same in the sense that like in all of Jennifer McMahon's books, she always has like a past point of view and then like a present day, and then she always has like a really good sister relationship happening in the book, and then like she definitely has a lot of the same kind of themes happening in her book, but I wouldn't necessarily say the vibes are similar just because
Okay.
this one gave more like Frankenstein, kind of I don't know, creepy like summer kind of almost like Stranger Things vibes in this one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the vibes were a little bit different, but I still think it's definitely worth reading. But I still do think The Winter People is my favorite. Like The Winter People is so good. Um,
I'll have to. Will definitely check that one out because I do really think overall, like this was a very strong book, and it made
yeah,
me. There are, again, like there are some things I wish had happened differently, but
yeah,
I definitely would read more. I think as a storyteller, getting the story across, if the winner people is kind of like same vibes as in like storytelling wise and the way the story's presented, I think I
hmm,
could dig it. I think I could read that.
yeah, yeah. No, I think you would really like The Winter People if you really liked this one, just because The Winter People is like it's like I mean it's better in my opinion just because of the way like things unravel in that book, but that one has like
Mm.
really like wintry vibes. It's like very snowy ambiance atmosphere,
Ooh,
and it's like it
yes.
kind of gives major like Pet Cemetery Stephen King kind of vibes.
That's my favorite Stephen
Yeah,
King book.
no, same. It's my favorite Stephen King too, so that's why like The Winter People's my favorite. But yes,
Oh,
I
I'm
do
gonna have
think
to
you
definitely read it.
would.
I will definitely read it now. Definitely.
Yeah, I was wondering too. Have you read Frankenstein? Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't, so that's why it's an interesting because I was wondering, like, how does this compare or, like, 'cause it's saying that it's, like, inspired by Frankenstein, so do you
Mm.
feel like it's, like, similar or,
Yeah.
like, you
I
can see
feel
that inspiration?
yeah, I think theme-wise, like the way it's like presented thematically, it reminded me of Frankenstein because yeah, in Frankenstein, and there's even a part when, and I don't think this is like a spoiler or anything, because there's a part when they're watching Frankenstein, the kids are
Yeah,
watching Frankenstein, and Iris like breaks down crying because of what happens to the monster and how the monster is vilified and
yeah,
stuff, and the fact that the monster is only called a monster because he was different to everyone, and like there was like a lot of ways that Iris felt that she could relate to the monster.
mhm,
So the fact that we do get asked this question repeatedly in the text is like, who is a monster? Are monsters real? And
yeah,
I like how it was flipped on its head at the end. I also like there is definitely a monster in this, and like it
yeah,
wasn't who I was like initially expecting, even though I I had like red flags myself quite early on.
Yeah.
But I think thematically it was quite similar in that way. Like not in like story wise and like bringing people back to life and putting
Yeah.
human body parts together. But like, yeah, I think just questioning who's a real monster and who isn't
Yeah.
is like the inspiration.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting with this, because like, yeah, like you said, it's not so much like bringing monsters back to life kind of thing, but it is more of like a, yeah, like a discussion about like what makes a monster, like who is the real
Mm,
monster. I totally agree with Elizabeth. I love the discussions about monsters and how we treat people who are different. Like that whole
mm,
conversation was something I really wasn't expecting with this book. But yeah, like you said, there were so many great moments where I was like, oh my gosh, like the way that Iris could like relate to like, the monster in the movie, and the way they kept having all these lines like, well, he's more human than they are, and like
mm.
how, like, who's the real monster, the person who created, or like the creature being made, or the person creating it. And so like
Mm.
there were just so many good moments. So I could definitely see that that probably had some similarities with Frankenstein there. um
Yeah, I haven't read Frankenstein since I was in college, but I can just remember how it like went. I definitely need to reread. It's one like it was a favorite of mine back in the day, and I love Gothic classics anyway, and that's like the Gothic classic.
I know,
So
I'm
I would
hoping to
definitely
read it.
reread it. Oh, you should do it for like Halloween or something, or
I know, i'm
kind of.
i'm hoping to read it around like October time. I feel like it'd be like the
Oh my
perfect read.
oh my God, you need to read all the Gothic books, all of
Yeah.
them, classic Gothic. Have you read Dorian Gray? Picture of Dorian Gray.
No, I just bought that one though. I got it in the mail like 2 days ago.
Oh my God, I'm
I'm so
wavelength. We are on the same wavelength. Oh my God, that's my
I know.
favorite.
That's what I hear. I always hear like Dorian Gray is like one of the best classics. So I was like,
Mm.
well, then I'll give it a shot. Like I gotta read it. So
Yes. If you need any more recommendations, I'm here.
yes, I'll be in the DMs after this. Um, okay, well, I feel like on that note, we're probably gonna jump into some spoilers just because I
Mm,
feel like I've touched on most of the things that I want to touch on in the non-spoilery, and because there's so many things we need to talk about with the spoiler section. So,
yeah.
if you are here and you have not read it or you don't want to be spoiled, then this is where we say goodbye because we're gonna jump into some spoilers. So thanks for joining us. And so yeah, we're gonna jump into some spoilers. Okay, so so I guess my first question, with spoilers, is like, what was the biggest twist for you? Because I know towards the end there was like a lot of shocking things. So I guess what shocked you most about this book?
What shocked me most was I've got it. I highlighted it. It's on page 284, and it was Lizzie's POV. And then they say back to a time when I was a girl named Iris, and I was like, for God's sake, I thought that was Vi. I thought Lizzie was Vi. Why did? And you know
Same.
what? As well, this is why I feel dumb because during the entire thing, like Lizzie doesn't say that she was actually Vi. Like, so that
I
was just
know.
totally my kind of, like automatic assumption
I
that it would
know,
be. And
right?
I was like, oh my God, this author did such a good job of bamboozling me. Like, how dare you? But that was the twist that I really liked. The one about like it actually being like Violet, also having been somebody who was part of the Mayflower Project, I think it was called. That
Yeah.
didn't really surprise me, but the Lizzie twist, the Lizzie reveal was like,
Oh my
okay,
gosh. I
that's
know.
that's when it became a fall.
I was like trying to look back to the beginning because I was like, didn't it say like directly that Lizzie is bi? Because I was like, why would I just make that assumption if it
Yeah,
didn't like directly say
exactly.
it?
Because like, literally, Jennifer McMahon bamboozled us.
I
Never
know,
gonna
like
forgive her.
I know. I was
Mm.
also pretty surprised about Eric knowing the whole time. I really
Ah,
didn't expect that. Like,
kind of don't understand something with that because right, this is when I want to get maybe a little bit nitpicky because he seems quite close to Iris, like well Lizzie now, like seems
yeah,
close to her. But when it's revealed that he knew, he's like really nasty to Violet. He says like, "You're not my sister. You're a stray." He spat out the word like Iris. Like it's like so nasty and vile, even though
yeah,
he's like a young kid. But like, surely him and Violet grew up like a little bit, for however long they were together. So surely like he would have felt a little bit more sympathy towards her for him to then be quite close to Iris as an adult. I'm like, I need to see the connection there because like it just seemed like so nasty
yeah.
about Violet not being his real sister. I'm just like, well, yeah, I was just a bit confused about like that. But I didn't like Eric at the end. I really loved the whole Eric, Violet, and Iris kind of monster club thing. I thought that was so good. I loved
Yes,
saying that, and I was just like, why did you do that, Eric? That was so mean.
I know, and
It was like a total 180.
yeah, it came out of nowhere, kind of, which I totally agree with. Like that was unexpected. um, yeah, I agree that that was kind of a big. I mean, I was shocked by the fact that Eric like knew the whole time. I mean, like you said, like I don't know, I didn't see it coming that Vi was also like a part of the thing. Like I had just I don't know, I was being so naive. I was like, they're real siblings the whole time. Like I was like, that's her real Gran.
It's not your fault because again, Jennifer McMahon bamboozled us.
I know. I was like so shook. Like the end, it was just like twist after twist after twist for me. I was like, what is going on? Like everything's a lie. Um, but yeah, I was kind of surprised by Eric too. Like that just seemed kind of random, and I kind of find it hard to believe almost that he like wouldn't have told her. Like especially after Iris came too. Like wasn't he like kind of suspicious on like what the fuck is Gran up to? Like bringing all these girls home.
Yeah, I would have been asking questions. Eric, what's going
Yeah.
on?
Mhm. Well, see that too. Eric didn't know Gran wasn't his Gran. Like that was part of it that was confusing for me because I was like, what? Because I thought it said that Gran like took Eric from his parents, but she was his real grandmother, right? From what I understood, or did I? I don't know if I missed something.
I think no, I think you're right. But honestly, I there was so much like missing information, like in general. So many
Mhm.
gaps that I can't actually recall 100% if that was the case, but I that's the impression I got.
Yeah, because I thought it said that she was his grandmother, but then she like got rid of his parents in some kind of like weird way. Like I don't know if she killed them or something. Oh, okay, so people are saying she wasn't his grandmother. Eric said they were
It was,
strays, but Eric was a stray too.
but then that again, that make confused me even more of like Eric's reaction, like when he spits out the words "you're a stray," like Iris, like he has so much like hate for her in that
I know.
moment, and just because she's a stray, like, but if he's a stray as well, why was he so angry? Why was he
Exactly.
so like cruel to her? If they're on the same boat, then it doesn't make sense. That's kind of why I thought he was a real grandchild.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
Wait what? Yeah, I guess we don't know. But yeah, my my mom was very suspicious of Gran from the beginning,
Yeah,
which I was too, because I was like, she's obviously like, I mean, whether or not she was like kidnapping children, I was like, either way, she's like testing her scientific things on children, which is fucked up. So
yeah,
I was like, okay, like
yeah.
what is going on with her? And it was giving me major Stranger Things vibes with the whole like idea of like Iris being like tested on in a lab. It was giving major like 11 in Stranger Things vibes for me.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I totally see that.
something that I thought was like super convenient about the ending that was kind of frustrating for me is how like after we get the reveal that like Vi was actually the monster and all that stuff, then it's like she just burns everything to the ground and then she's like, oh sorry, I burned all the files on Iris and now like we don't know anything about Iris still. And I'm like, dude, like because a big part of the mystery for this book for me was Iris's character and trying to figure out like where did she come from and like what's her story. And I kind of hate the convenience of like, oh, I just burned all the files in a fire and now we don't know. Like I hate
Mhm.
that.
That is probably why I gave this a 4 star because I feel like Jennifer McMahon, like the author, she had a really good idea in like the whole general vibe of it. But when it comes to actually explaining things, there's just like too many hidden gaps. Like I don't quite get the end, like the explanation of what Violet's doing in the present day. Like we don't
Yeah,
get any kind of like explanation on how she's been doing it.
yeah.
But the files, like if we had have gotten more information on what was going on with the, I think it's the Mayflower Project. Like I think that was what it was called. And
Hmm.
kind of yeah, like Iris's backstory, Violet's backstory, like any kind of way that we could have gotten more. And that's kind of why I was like really suspicious of like Violet and her turning out to be one of the projects as well because we again like had so much misinformation about like her actual past and her actual upbringing and stuff as well. Like, there's just so many gaps. So I thought when she was revealed to have been the person that she was actually reading about, the patient she was reading about, I wasn't
Yeah.
surprised at that. But just because there's just so many missing things. When we talk about the ending, we'll need to discuss like the biggest missing thing of all.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. Like not getting to know about Irish's background was one of the things that like pissed me off about the ending. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, just to talk about that ending. So yeah, how did you feel about? Because like, okay, for a long time in this book, I was literally thinking that it was gonna go in the direction of like real monsters.
Same.
I don't know if I was the only one, but I was literally thinking it was gonna go in the direction of like in the present day, I was thinking Iris was gonna be like a fucking werewolf or something, like with the way it was like girls are going missing mysteriously. I was like, oh my god, she's
On
literally
a
like
full
a
moon.
monster. Yeah, exactly. It was. I feel like it was hinting at the fact almost that she was like a real monster, and I was getting so excited because I was like, oh my god, like it's gonna go there and it's gonna be like crazy. And then
Mhm.
I don't know, it was just kind of like it didn't end up going in that direction at all.
Yeah, I genuinely wanted actual supernatural
I
kind of
know. I thought it would
horror
go that
in,
way too.
especially since it said that when the girls were going missing in each location, they said they saw the local legend that was there,
Mhm.
and they would appear to them, and then they would disappear, and then yeah, nobody would hear anything from them. So right, this is like probably like my biggest, I guess, problem is like how like how did Violet, how did she approach these girls and did she go to them and say, "Look, I'm going to take you away. I'm going to make your life better. I'm going to you're going to have to tell people and pretend that I'm the local legend. I'm Rattling Jane. You're going to have to
Mhm.
tell people that, and then I'm going to take you away, and then I'm going to make your life better." Like, is that what she did to these girls? Like, is that how she enticed them to go with her so that she could change and like radicalize their lives? Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
understand. Like, why? Like, if somebody came up to me and said, "Pretend you're like." I don't know of a local legend here, like Jack the Ghost. Pretend you've seen Jack the Ghost,
Yeah,
and then you're going to disappear. I'm going to be like, what? I'm
I
phoning the
know.
police. You know what I mean? It's like how did she do that? Like how did she do
Like,
all
gained
of
her
this?
trust, like,
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like let us know. Let us know, author,
I
please. Like
know.
please explain that. That's like my biggest thing about it is that yeah, a lot of things just weren't explained, and I need that to be the big because that was a big twist at the end as well. What she was actually doing to the girls and how she was changing their lives. Explain. Explain.
Mhm. This
There's so much
too,
miscommunication. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna
like
say like that. There's so much like miscommunication with the reader on this because how that was
yeah,
the spookiest part.
that's what I mean, like, was the Rattling Jane thing, if it was, like, a local,
Mm,
like, thing in the town for a long period of time, then was she just pretending to be, like, this Rattling Jane, or was the Rattling Jane thing not even real at all? You know, like
mm. Yeah, that's a question. That's a good question because yeah, yeah, that's a what's she doing? Like, how is she doing it? Like, that's
yeah,
but this is why I thought to begin with, I thought the monster was going to be like a shapeshifter and then it just
mhm,
like transforms into different beings in different places. But then she
yeah,
wasn't even like a shapeshifter really at the end. And so, like, how?
yeah. I mean, I agree with this that yeah, the message is that human monsters are scarier than any other kind of monster, and I do appreciate the message. I guess I was just
Mm.
expecting something different.
Yes, that's it. And even like the summary of it made me expect something totally different as well. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, there was
Interesting.
yeah, I mean I'm glad of because if with it being like a Frankenstein kind of retelling ish, like it still keeps the theme of who are the real monsters.
Mhm.
And it just kind of this is why the author did a good job of bamboozling us and like pulling the wool over our eyes and making it us think that Lizzie was someone else. Which she was distracting us the entire time. She was
Yeah,
distracting us from the actual thing that was happening, which is good. Like I'm not like knocking it for that. I just want explanations, like because I logic wise, I'm just I don't know.
I agree. Yeah. There definitely should have been some more explanation on certain things. One of the other big things in this book that I want to talk about is that kiss
Oh,
um between okay, like literally like
yeah.
okay, if you're still watching and you haven't read this, there's one chapter, like literally one chapter in this whole book where Vi goes up to Iris, they're like having a heated moment, and then she's just like boom, kisses her, and it's like I wasn't mad about the kiss because I was like, okay, cool, like it's heading in a more romantic direction because I kind of figured at that point I'm like they're not actually sisters, you know, like they're just
Yeah.
two girls that got put in this shitty situation together. So I was like, okay, cool, I might ship it, and then never brought up again. Like literally, it was as if it didn't happen. I was
Yeah,
like,
like, what was the pivot? Because it happened on page 240. I highlighted
yeah,
it. It said, She kissed Iris desperately, hungrily, as if her kiss alone could save Iris, could pull her back, take away all that happened, as if her kiss could banish the monsters. And like, if something had have happened with that, that would have been a very powerful moment
Yeah,
because it kind of just what it symbolized was these two girls. They, like you said, they got put in a really shitty situation, and they
yeah,
just like grew closer together very naturally.
yeah,
And then yeah, that's kind of like what would happen. Like I guess when passions are or like emotions are high, and it kind of feels like a natural thing to do, and
yeah.
it is a natural thing to do. But then nothing, like crickets. There were
I know.
crickets after. Like I wanted more from that.
I know, same. Like I didn't mind because like I know some people were like, "Oh my god, like they're sisters," and then they go and do this. But I'm like, okay. I mean, at that point, we kind of knew like they weren't really sisters. You know, like obviously she knew she
Yeah.
brought Iris home. She knew it was not her real sister. So like that wasn't the issue for me. It was just nothing got brought up afterwards. I was like, this could have been a really like interesting shift because then I was
Mm.
starting to think. I was like, oh, it like in the present day chapters, is she trying to hunt her because she's like in love with her or something like that? You know, like I thought it was gonna be more of like maybe it's a romantic thing towards the end, but like literally never brought up again. Like,
That would have been so interesting though if that had been the case. Like if she was like, I love her so much, I cannot let her go in that
yeah,
in like the romantic way rather than like the sister way.
yeah,
Then that would have been really interesting because yeah, they're not really sisters, so like it's that's all good there. But yeah, it was strange, I guess.
yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It just kind of felt pointless, I guess, because of the
Mm.
whole. I was like, okay, well, what was the reason then for including it? Is it like just to show how like desperate Vi is to like make her feel safe? You know, like is that the reason really? But like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I want like a kind of wrap up to that emotion at least because again, like there's just so many loose ends from
Mhm.
this book, which is again like preventing me from giving it a higher rating because yeah, if just like any kind of um confrontation about it afterwards, even as adults, if they had like said something as adults, like I've always loved you, like but like in that kind of like romantic way, I guess, would
Yeah.
have just been like, oh, okay, like this is like deep, this is personal, like well, I mean it is deep and personal because she's chasing her and not she's dedicated her life to it. But like, I don't know, like it's the same thing with like queer coding something and not like delivering on it. I guess like
Mhm.
it's the same thing with like Stranger Things at the minute as well. Like we need kind of like I would rather it be something solid than a queer baby kind of
Yeah.
deal because I'm sick of queer baiting now. We need to stop.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why I was like it got me all excited, you know, for a second. I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, the fact that I picked this book during Pride Month, like, hell yeah, let's go. And then it
Mhm.
was like nothing after that. I was like, "Oh, okay. Great.
I
That's
I
cool."
totally get that.
They believe in monsters, they're children. It's not hard to believe that in the heat of the moment, Vi was naive enough to think a kid could save Iris from the monster and her like a fairy tale. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, she does say like she thinks that the kiss could banish the monsters. Then Iris pushed by away, her eyes huge with fear.
Mhm.
But then internally, Violet says, "I'm sorry, I love you. Let's forget this ever happened." So like, yeah, she's kind of like burying it, but it's still presenting the idea that Vi loves Iris. And the way she says it is like it's so direct in her head, and it just seems like there's just something a little bit more romantic there. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I love you. I love you. It's just like more than it just feels like more than just a sister, I guess.
Mhm. Not my mom. Like it was so misleading. Okay, was this book actually horror? Getting to rethink my.
I was never scared. Like that's the thing. Like I don't know if I would say it was horror. I think somebody mentioned before it was more like psychological kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I mean I was actually scared of the Rattling Jane thing, but then
Exactly.
that
I was
turned
gonna
out to
say.
like not really be a real thing. So
Yeah. Like the Rattling Jane was definitely the creepiest part of the book to me, and that felt the most horror. And then also kind of like the discussion about like eugenics and the way Gran was like kind of testing on these kids, like that felt really horror to me too. But I
yeah.
do agree that
Oh
it
yeah.
did feel more like mystery, kind of like at most of the time it felt like more like a mystery. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I guess like the implications of it are quite horror based because I feel like the ending, what Violet's doing to these girls, she says
Mhm.
something that reminds me of Gran. She said something. What did she say? Something about how she is, the girls are ready for their transformation and things, but it's the same thing that Gran says about like making the kids better in the Mayflower report or something. Like Gran says something that's creepily similar. So it sounds like Violet's heading in the same way as Gran because they're both kind of doing the same thing. They're changing people.
Mhm.
And I guess the implication of what the ending implies is that Violet, while she has good intentions, I'm sure Gran thought she had good intentions as well because she's getting the dregs of society or whatever. She's making them better people, and they wouldn't be better without her, kind of thing. And that's
Yeah.
what Vi's doing the exact same thing. Like, how is
Mhm.
it like really different? You know, that's kind of like the implication of the ending to me. That is a
Mhm.
little bit horror because then what is Violet going to do next? Is she going to like descend into madness? Is she going to lose control? Are the girls going to like end up suffering in her hands because of what she's doing? Like,
Yeah.
like what is actually going to happen? And I just wanted more explanation. I wanted more.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, and I was gonna ask, like, because I know we said we expected it to go more in the direction of like monsters at the end, but like, how did you feel about that ending reveal that like it's Vi's actually helping girls like escape from their lives, and like did you think that was a satisfying ending, or were you kind of like, what the heck is this?
I'm not mad at it. I the way it was revealed was a bit
Mhm.
unsatisfactory because we were building up to something a lot more exciting, and then it just seemed to be a confrontation that was mainly just talking. And if they
Mhm.
had have said all of this at the very beginning, if Violet hadn't led Iris, Lizzie on this wild goose chase this entire time, how
Yeah.
long's it been? 40 years? If she
Yeah.
had have just said literally like 30 or whenever she started doing this, she just said, "This is what I'm doing."
Yeah.
And then I feel like, w- I mean, obviously, there's like, it would depend on how Violet would, no, Iris, yeah, Iris, Lizzie would react to it. She could react to it badly. She doesn't.
Mhm.
But it's the whole miscommunication. If she had have just said, that's the thing, like, all of this could have been avoided if they just talked.
You know,
Essentially, they just
yeah.
talked.
Then we wouldn't have a story.
That's true.
Yeah. I know, I agree, like, I like the idea of it, like, I like the idea that Violet decided to use her, like, monster thing for good, and I like the idea that she's, like, helping these women escape from their lives, but kind of like you were saying earlier, I feel like I just needed more explanation on, like, how that even works and, like, what exactly she's doing to, like, earn these girls' trust, like, immediately, like, I don't know, some of that was a little far-fetched for me, I was like, "Okay, like, I don't know if I'm buying into this," but then I actually really did like the very ending when like Lauren has like her stepdad waking up on the table and they
Yeah,
like kill him kind of Dexter style or something. I was like, wait.
yeah.
I was like, okay, so they're
That
actually taking out the monsters that are like
yeah,
abusing them. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, I don't know, I really like that aspect of it.
that was a fair yeah, that was satisfying because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like and also just, like, the way that, like, is a commentary on, like, the, like, abusers, on the real
Mhm.
life monsters of the world and kind of, like, taking power back from them. I did really like that. I just wish there was more of a confrontation between Violet and Iris. Like, I just wish there'd just been because like,
Yeah.
it's been 40 years. It's been, like, 40 years.
Exactly.
I wanted, like, an explosion,
Yeah.
essentially. I wanted an explosion. But, like, I really did like that. But that's the thing, like, I know someone said in the comments before about like how um she's not the same as Graham because she's changing them for the better and stuff. But like that is like, yeah, that's true, she is. But like where's the line? Because again, we're
Mhm.
dipping into murder. We're dipping into murder, which in like ethically it's a bad thing. And so like where's the line? Where's the line
Yeah.
with that? And it's just like so yeah, we kind of had like two endings. We had the confrontation between Violet and Iris, and then like the stepdad thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was yeah, I liked it. I like the end. I like the end
Yeah,
end.
I know, I was gonna say the end was satisfying, but the reveal about Violet just, like, helping women escape their lives was a little yeah, like, it was a little weak for me too. I do
Yeah.
like the idea of it, and I support this idea 100%, but, like, it as a reveal for me, it was just kind of like, I thought there would be more happening than that, so, uh
Yeah, I think I would have been more satisfied had we maybe gotten a flashback to Violet right after like the fire and stuff, and like when she escaped and like how she fell into this saving girls, pretended to be local legends and
Mhm.
getting these benefactors and sponsors or whatever. And like if there had just been like maybe a couple of chapters on like a flashback of that, just to make
Yeah.
it seem a little bit more believable and to explain, because
Yeah.
again, there's just not really a lot that was explained. A lot of it was told to us, a lot was presented to us. We got the story, we got the plot, but none of it was really explained, you know?
Mhm.
And for a book that's rooted in reality, because this isn't a supernatural, it turned out not to be a supernatural book. So
Yeah.
if it had been supernatural, I could have suspended my belief or disbelief or whatever, and I could have believed without much explanation. But because this is real, this is like real life,
Yeah.
it's grounded in reality. I need a real explanation, you know?
Yeah.
And we didn't really get a real explanation.
No, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was an interesting comment too. I thought them killing the dad was random. Like, aren't we supposed to be doing a good thing different from Gran? But I feel like, um, I don't know. I feel like it was almost showing how Violet was a monster in her own way, right? But she was just
Mhm.
using her thing for something good in the world, which is getting rid of someone who's abusive. Like, that's her idea of like making the world a safer place. So it's almost kind of
Yeah.
like Dexter, right? It's like you're
Mhm.
using your killing urges for like the better of the world in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like I
Yeah.
get what she was trying to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's why I think it's like a very circular moment with Gran and Gran
mhm,
being like they're doing good to the world because they're cleaning up society.
mhm,
But that's kind of like what Violet's doing, but in her way, like in a better way, you know. So yeah, it's a very thing, which is it's a really good part of this book though is like seeing the parallels between Gran and Violet, like how they progressed and what we can take from both of them kind of being
mhm.
monsters. I feel like Gran was like an actual monster. Like what
Yeah,
she was doing, what she did was like monster. She was a monster.
exactly, yep.
And Violet is presented as the monster throughout. Like her POV chapter at the start is the monster. But then we're kind of forced to be questioned, like, yeah, what again? Like, what is a monster? Like, what makes a monster, and how are we gonna I guess, respond to these characters as monsters.
I know, I agree that, like, the Gran was definitely, like, the biggest monster of the whole book, which is ironic because she was the one creating, the
Hmm.
monsters with, like, the kids. So, like, I do think that that's an interesting, like, kind of parallel to Frankenstein when it's like, who is the real monster, the one creating it or the monster
Hmm.
itself? Like, um,
Yeah.
I find this comment so funny because I'm not even trying to criticize it. I just like discussing in great detail, even if it sounds like I'm being super,
Yes.
super critical of it. I just,
No, I honestly, I feel like I mean, it's still a 4 star for me. Like, I know I said, like, even after a chat and stuff, I might lower my rating and stuff. I mean, maybe
yeah,
3.5, I don't know. Like, 3.5 would be my bottom. I would definitely not give it lower than that. But I love a book that makes me, like, dissect it.
no,
And,
me
like,
too. Yeah,
that's what makes a 4 star book for me. Is like, if it was a 4 star book and I had nothing to say and nothing to, like, criticize or anything like
yeah,
that, then it wouldn't, yeah, it just wouldn't be a 4 star. It would be definitely like lower. But like,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I feel like yeah, we did. It's
No, I
easier
know
to talk about
that's what I mean. I know
critically
it sounds
rather
like we're
than
being like super critical, but like I would still give
yeah,
this a 4.5 just purely based on enjoyment while I was reading it. Like
yeah,
I loved the vibes of the book. I loved like almost like the nostalgia of like the kids going and seeing Frankenstein at the drive-ins and like it was just really fun for me to read. So like I feel like a lot of times my rating it won't even be based on like how many plot holes were there or like how did I
yeah,
exactly feel about every twist. It's like my rating is 4.5 because I had a great time reading it and I just thought it was
yeah.
really fun. Um,
Yeah, that's my biggest thing when I read a book because I use the co-pile system that Jay made,
mhm.
and it doesn't matter what the overall rating is that it gets because it averages out in like different factors. So it could be like a lowish rating, but if the
Mhm,
enjoyment rating is high, then I give it this like the star rating based off that rather than the
mhm.
whole thing. Like I've read a book that got like a 7 out of 10, which is like great. It's still pretty good,
Yeah,
but I gave it 5 stars because I enjoyed it so much. You
exactly.
know, it's like all very like personal and like enjoyment
Yeah,
is the biggest thing with reading. So yeah, I
exactly.
I could crap on a book for hours and hours, but if I enjoyed it, then it's a five.
Exactly. And I'm like, I always try to emphasize that sometimes 5 stars are things that I think only I would give 5 stars. Like, I wouldn't go around recommending this book for everyone, but it's like, so
Yeah,
yeah, sometimes like personal enjoyment can be high even if the book isn't that good. Like, I can acknowledge that it's not that good, but I still enjoyed it. So that's just
yeah,
how it be.
yeah.
Um, Well, I guess to like start to wrap this up, I was wondering if you would, recommend anything similar to this, or like if people enjoyed this, do you have any other like books or maybe TV shows or movies that you think this is kind of similar to, that you would say like, oh, if you liked this book, maybe you can check out this too? Because I know the Frankenstein thing was kind of like
Yeah. And the
mentioned to
question
me.
of like, yeah, like question of monsters. I mean, TV show wise, I do think like maybe American Horror Story Asylum. I do
Ooh,
think that.
okay.
Have you never seen American Horror Story?
I haven't. I'm so scared,
Oh my
but I need to.
gosh. Oh, yeah, you do. I think you would enjoy it. It's so good.
Yeah,
Book wise, I might have to think on that because I haven't read too much like this before. Thriller wise. I don't think there's anything I could liken it to that
yeah,
I know
I
of
know.
anyway. There probably is, but I'm blanking right now.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's hard to like figure out a book that this is similar to, besides like something obvious like Frankenstein, or
Mm,
something that it was kind of inspired by.
mhm,
Um, but I think, I mean, at least for me, it gave me like 11 from Stranger Things vibes. That's like one of the only things I could think to really like compare this to, and just kind of like the way the kids interacted sometimes would
mm,
remind me of like the kids interacting in Stranger Things. It definitely had that. Oh yeah, I did see some people comparing this to the Book of Cold Cases, which I could see for sure, just because of the podcast elements and like the way it goes back and forth
mm.
in time. For sure, I could see that. Um,
Interesting. I might have to check that one out as well.
Mhm. But yeah, I would compare this to a lot of her previous books, like I said, just because it has the similarity of like storytelling with like the past and the present, and like the sister relationships. Um that's interesting. So specifically that season.
Yeah, yeah, I think if you could just watch season two, you can do. You can watch any season in any order. Oh, actually, there is a sequel season later on for season three. So I
Mm,
mean, season two you can watch on its own. You can watch, which is Asylum. Watch that
mhm.
one. It's a good season.
Dang. I know my sister's seen some of American Horror Story. She said it's good.
Yeah, Rachel's got good taste.
Ooh, okay, The Institute by Stephen King. I can see that, the whole like testing on kids thing, for sure. It's making me want to read The Haunting of Hill House. It's a
Nice.
good one.
I need to read that, and that's a prompt for Summerween. So read a book
Oh,
with haunt in the title.
there you go. What's
Oh yeah.
up? Oh, The Haunting of Bly Manor. Yes, that is one that I also kind of related to this. At least the Rattling Jane aspect of this reminded me a lot of The Haunting of Bly Manor. I would agree with that.
Hmm. I still need
Um,
to watch that season. I watched the first season. I watched Hill House, and I loved it. So I need
yeah,
to watch. I need to watch Blind Manor.
yeah, Bly Manor was also really good. Probably not. I mean, I didn't like it as much as Hill House, but the vibes were really cool in Bly Manor. All right.
Nice.
Well, I think that just about wraps up everything that I wanted to touch on. Did you have any other like specific things you wanted to mention about the book before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. I think wait. It's very easy to talk about a book like this when there was just. I mean, random page again. Eric,
Mhm.
when he's older, I I wasn't sure what was going on with him because to begin with, when he's talking on the phone with Lizzie, um, like Lizzie doesn't trust him. And she
Mhm.
says, like, I'm not going to tell. I feel like I shouldn't tell him where I am because she doesn't trust him. And I was like,
Yeah.
why? Why don't you trust him? So for some reason, I just randomly mentioned that because he was a sketchy character from the beginning. That
No,
brother.
he was. I know, and especially like looking back on the book now that you like know all of the information,
Mm,
it's like it's weird how, yeah, Eric in the present day seemed kind of like shady, or like I don't know,
mm,
I agree. Like what was his relationship with Violet even like at that point? Like he just cut her off
yeah.
after everything? Like I don't know.
And then how did him and Iris get closer? Like what?
Yeah.
I just
I know,
wanted a bit more in between. I did.
especially if Iris was like a stray too, then I don't know why he would treat her any different than Violet.
Hmm.
So what's up
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, what is up with that?
That's crazy. Um, that's a cool question. I actually think that this is one of my favorite booktube picks of this year. I think this one's probably my
Yeah.
favorite so far.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, I'm so glad. I love that I was the one to share
right.
this with you.
had a big
Yay!
influence on me. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it, honestly. Like, I'm just hoping for a 5 star at some point this year, because this is the closest I've gotten so far. But yeah, I've never had a five
Right.
star for my own book club before. It's wild.
Really, since
Yeah,
starting the
yeah, since starting last year, I haven't.
oh my gosh, Gabby.
I know, it's so embarrassing.
No, it's not. But like, we need to see. Try and change this. We need to brainstorm.
I
Actually,
know. Well, next month is the new Riley Sager, and I just don't have high hopes now because everybody's just shitting all over it, and I'm like, no.
yeah, I saw McKay's review of that. I was like,
Yeah, me too. Exactly. I'm like, shit, not again. So we'll see.
yeah.
But yeah, and then Summerween starts on July 15th. So coming up here pretty soon.
Oh, I'm so excited. Ugh. And
Yes.
I did partake in last year's Summerween, but I moved house that week, so I couldn't
Oh,
really like fully partake. But I can this year. I can get my teeth into it this year.
yes. This year will be a better, more chill time for you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that just about wraps up the live. So thank you so much for joining us and for reading with us this month. Again, my friend Gavin is an amazing human, and his channel will be linked down below. If you're not subscribed to him, please go and check out his channel. Genuinely, I'm sure you will find something that will entertain you because Gavin's videos are just amazing, high
They're
quality
insane.
entertainment.
They're insane. Thank you.
Of course.
And if you
And
haven't subscribed to Gabby, do so as well.
yes, if you're watching on my channel, please subscribe.
Please subscribe. Also, don't forget Gabby's Patreons, the higher tiers, that vlog. If you want to watch more of Gabby's thoughts on this
Oh my
and
gosh.
Gabby's mum, watch that
My
vlog. It's so
my
good.
mom had many thoughts.
Yeah, she did.
Yes. I know. I will put Gavin's Patreon as well in the description because Gavin also has a Patreon and he's doing amazing things over there. So, yeah.
Not as good as Gabby. Not as good as Gabby.
Yeah, we'll probably be doing, I'm assuming we'll be doing reading sprints on Patreon together at some point in the near
Oh,
future.
100%.
So, it happens quite often
100%.
over there. All right.
We'll
Well,
be
thank you so
together
much.
again.
Yeah. This is not a one time thing. So, thank you guys so much